What's it like being an ISFP in your boots?
Um, it's interesting because I think that there are some facets of each personality that people can relate to. I'm someone who I'm like exactly half in between all of the different categories. So like I'm slightly more introverted than I am extroverted. Um, and I do take on other people's emotions, but like I have a hard time with my own just because I'm so heavily involved in others. Um, whether that's intentional, like to help to disconnect on my own emotions or because I genuinely want to help people, I guess that varies, but it's just very half and half, I feel like in general when it in regards to like every aspect of the intuitiveness and the perception and the judgment and the feeling. I'm like right in the middle of all of those things. And I think that kind of matches my personality type as a whole.
Where did you get typed at? Did you get like online testing? Did your friends type you? Did you get typed by somebody online or?
I did the Myers-Briggs test online a couple of times because I wanted to see if I like answered incorrectly or I was because I was in a different place, but each time it's always been the same.
Just been a consistent ISFP? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you taken any other tests like Big Five or anything like that? I know you said you get pretty close in the middle for introversion and stuff like that.
No, the only other tests I've taken are like the Enneagram test and mm, there's like a psychological test about the narcissistic scale. I think those
Oh,
are the only ones I've done.
okay. I'm not too well versed on Enneagram. Do you remember your type?
I believe I was an eight. I'm I think it was pretty similar. It's self-confident, strong, and assertive.
Mm-hmm.
So it just means which I also am a Gryffindor house, which is about being strong and courageous and brave. So I think that does tie into my personality type in a way. Um, just as a person, I'm usually more assertive when I need to be, but then also quiet when I need to be, I guess.
That kind of makes sense, I guess. Eight is kind of known for like an ENTJ, which would be like Donald Trump. I don't know if you watch wrestling at all, but Vince McMahon, those type of characters. I heard Harrison Ford's an ENTJ. It's like your dual side, your opposite side, and you usually like to take charge, assertive, kind of in your face, get things done, sort of people. And it sounds like just when we're talking a little bit before the interview started recording, excuse me, is you said that you're going to school and you're taking 5 courses and you work 2 jobs, so that's pretty ENTJ like. So it sounds like you're on the right track and you're pretty balanced with your feeling and your thinking and all that stuff. I know ISFPs can be really emotional and then they get caught up and they don't really want to take any action. It's kind of like an INTJ has NI, then their third, the child function, tertiary function, whatever you call it, is FI. And it's reversed for you guys. You have FI hero, FI dom, and you have NI child.
I would agree. I think
Yeah.
that um, I I think most of the reason why I take charge in general is because I think there's a lot of passiveness in general. And so I don't think I'm naturally an assertive person. I think just like, I think naturally, which is why I think I'm exactly half and half in everything, is naturally I'm more introverted. Naturally, I am more inquisitive and thoughtful and perceptive. But like life makes me have to be assertive, makes me have to be a little bit judgmental. So I think that's how the personality, the dual personality type kind of emerges for me is I am one way intuitively, but like circumstance has to make me be the opposite of what I feel.
Okay. And I know you said that you what are some of your aspirations? I know you said like you have a lot going on in life right now.
I just want to help mothers and children or families just be more self-aware of, well, I think a lot of people in general are not well versed in mental health discussions or don't know how to talk about their emotions or talk about, I guess, just essentially their needs and desires. And so I want to help families learn to deal with their own things so that they can be better parents to children and that they can help their children with the tools and environment to like foster their own healthy well-being emotionally, physically, socially. So I guess my goals are just however whatever facet I can do to help families and babies. I think that's where I would like to stay.
So right now you said you're a nanny and you're going for like early childhood in school, right?
Yeah, I have my associates in early childhood education and I'm getting my bachelor's in child development.
Very cool. What do you plan on doing from there?
Hopefully early intervention, um, which is just helping at-risk babies and infants. So for the first 3 years, um, if there is a child who's born with dependency needs or special needs, the earlier that you can involve yourself in a child's life to help them, whether or not they're typical or atypical, just the better. That way they can develop to be better adolescents and then adults.
That's very cool. I mentioned this almost every podcast, it seems like, but I guess there's always new people watching. I used to work with kids with behavioral health issues. Um, I did some like birth to five kids, mostly kind of that age and beyond. But yeah, there's a lot of people that, they're born substance exposed and they're have like, huge behavior problems later in life. And if you don't kind of nip it in the bud, it gets out of control pretty fast.
Yeah.
And you said that you're a nanny right now. How old are the kids, if you don't mind me asking?
I have two families. There's 1 and 3, and then 3 and 6. And I try to stay long term or like longer term for at least 3 years to just make sure there's consistency in their life and that it's also easier on the parent that they just don't have to have a constant change of hands
Yeah.
since it's hard to just know who you can trust. So I try to stay. And then if they want to continue having children, then that way I can already know what's going on in their lives.
Yeah, I think that's really important, like just with the turnover rate in the behavioral health field and just how much work they put on us. I complain about like the SJs, like the ESTJs and ISTJs and all those types where it's more about bureaucracy rather than treatment and relationships and being therapeutic. So they just kind of burn people out and piss people off, quite frankly, and they leave. And it's very heartbreaking for the kids. Like when I left that job, it was one of the hardest things I ever did. So I know those kids just never had any consistency. A lot of them never had relationships. And I don't know what they call it in California, but it's DCS here, Department of Child Safety. It used to be CPS, and they get put in foster care, and it's a horrible situation.
Yeah, if you consider all of well, there's a lot of systems I think that are broken, and it can be discouraging because I considered social work, but I don't know how effective I could be if I can't change much or if I see a situation and I can't intervene. I don't know that I can emotionally handle that. So
Yeah.
I had to just reconsider what it was I wanted to do because I don't know the emotional toll social work would take on me if I see situations that I can't change. So it's really difficult to know how broken systems are, and it can be discouraging. But I try to just remember the individuals I encounter and how effective I can be in a personal way, and then just be hopeful that things will change. And that if I stay consistent and encourage others to stay consistent, then there can be changes in the systems.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a long haul and a lot of convincing, like the SJs who are just in power. They uh they just want to keep things the way they are, even if they're not working, it seems like, and they don't really want to change things. They're a little hesitant of the future in a lot of ways, and it could be better. It could definitely be worse, but psychology is pretty new relatively. So hopefully it just gets better as we progress.
Yeah, that's true.
What are some of the big impacts you think you've made so far?
Um, I think I just by being social and like talking about things, I think my part of my proactiveness is like I in the past year I have facilitated some like in-person meetups for this online community I'm a part of. And initially I just thought nothing of it, like, oh, I'm just meeting my online friends. But after the fact, people were letting me know that it was like really helpful for them to find connections and to see that they had people nearby. So I think that over time, I have people reach out personally about how my openness has impacted them or my proactiveness. Because sometimes it's discouraging to think like, or to do so much and to kind of feel tired of like, oh, I'm doing all of this stuff and I'm underappreciated or I'm not, I need to take a break or whatever. But then to have like reminders of, hey, I remember you discussed this topic and I don't know how to talk about this with anyone else. Can I talk to you about it? Or thank you so much for, facilitating this or organizing this meetup because now I know that there's other people like me. And so I think that I by having individuals text me or call me or even if they see me in person to remember me because I think in life we just meet a lot of people and like we see someone and we're like I remember you but I don't remember where. To have people come up to me and remember me because of something that I said or the way that I impacted them is helpful and it encourages me to like that I'm on the right path or I'm doing the right things.
Very cool. Is that meetup something you want to kind of promote? If there's anybody watching in your vicinity that may need this help, or is that something you want to keep quiet on? Which I perfectly understand.
Well, I I recently decided to like resign and just let other people, meet up on their own. I think I was like the catalyst for it, but it's just a podcast that I listen to and then I encourage anyone who's in specific areas that I'll be visiting. So there's not anything coming up soon. Sometimes we meet on Zoom and there's like a Discord and stuff, but I'm not as active on Discord because I'm not, tech savvy or I'm not a
Yeah.
gamer either, so I don't know too much about it.
Yeah, I have a Discord server as well, and like a lot of people on there, like I'm like the grandpa basically. And I don't know all this new stuff. Like, why don't you add this? Like, I'm trying, I'm figuring it all out.
I don't understand any of it, but
Yeah.
I'm learning. I adapt well if I'm given time.
What do you think is the best thing about being an ISFP in your experience?
Um, I just think that I think mine is like something about being an artist and I was a little taken back because I'm not artist like I'm not creative in an imaginative way. I didn't like reading growing up because like I couldn't if it didn't have pictures, I couldn't think of what I was reading. Like I didn't have an imagination, I guess, an active imagination, unless someone was really good at describing it or I had seen something prior. So when I got the results, the various times I took it, I was like, I'm not an artist. Like I'm not creative in that way, but I think I'm creative like socially and at like sporadic like I can have sporadic plans or sporadic ideas that um, I'm like I know that there's some people who are like big picture people and don't think about the little steps along the way, and I can think about the little steps. And once something is already there, or like I also do hair. I'm a hairstylist, and so if someone shows me a picture of what it is they want, I have no problem recreating it. I just have trouble like coming up with something. So if someone's like, "Oh, do whatever you want," I'm like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I need you to show me what exactly you want, and then I can recreate it, no problem." So I think that's something that was interesting to me that to see that that is still art and creativeness, not in the way that we see. Like, if you think of an artist, you think of like, I don't know, like Bob Ross or something. I can't do that. But if you show me a picture of, I want this type of hairstyle, this type of haircut, I can do that no problem. So just to be able to see that creativity and being artistic isn't always what we have to think it is. It can be something really unique and individualistic.
Yeah, that's about what I was going to say. Like you said, you weren't artistic. I was going to bring up like the hairstyling. I know a lot of that's just like a stereotype, basically. It's not always true, like in the sense of like you're a painter or a sculptor. Like I know plenty of ISFPs that are like in construction or mechanics and stuff like that. And that's just their art. And
Yeah.
like how you just like, you could look at a picture of a haircut, you're just using your SE, which is like your second function, your parent function, and you're able just to kind of recreate it pretty much with ease, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you have a pretty big emotional toll. I guess like you doing this early education stuff and working with kids, that's kind of like your feeling aspect and kind of like an art in a way too, right?
Yeah, I think that I I can be an emotional person. I think that my instinct is to react in an emotional feeling way. But I try my hardest to insert logic into things that like um emotions can only take you so far. They help guide you in a way, but like we need structure and that's where logic comes in. And so I am a feeling person where I can have empathy towards someone or I can um feel strongly about things, but I need that logic and that like I guess road work, like the road paved to actually make things happen because if I'm all about feeling, then I feel like nothing gets done.
Yeah, for sure. I think that's where a lot of ISFPs struggle. Like I was saying, there's the NIFI loop for INTJs and it's a FINI loop for ISFPs. It's not all negative like some people say, but you kind of get stuck in your emotions and you really don't do what you want and set out for your goals. You just kind of sit around and do nothing pretty much. Was there ever a
Yeah.
period in your life where you've done that or have you been always been pretty ambitious?
I think my early years, I think I was exactly the opposite of what I feel like I am as an adult. Maybe if I'm ISFP, maybe I was like an ENTJ or something. Like growing up, I think that I was just very extroverted and I wanted to just like stay up all night watching TV shows and then wake up in the morning and watch cartoons. Like I think, you know, the 90s were a different time where like that was every kid wanted to do those things, but I think that I realized that like nothing I wanted more out of life and I think part of when I became an adult, I a part of maybe what facilitated the my personality or helped shape that is that I wanted to travel and I realized that I guess up until I was about 22, I had never really left my town. And so, having seen so much of the world and encountered different people, I realized that I should be a bit more ambitious because if I want to continue these things and I need to work and um, I need to be more well versed in other people's cultures. Otherwise, I'll come off as closed minded. And I didn't want to. I had to just, I guess there was a switch in my brain that I had to work to like actively work on being personable and being a little bit more introverted and social. Like I had to actively work on those things because I don't think it was in my nature to be that way.
Interesting. I know ISFPs are kind of known as the quiet partiers when they get a little alcohol in them. And this is a stereotype. It's not all around, of course. You ever had like the party phase?
Um, I think so, but I think that I'm more observant and so I like perceptive. I will I like to be around parties, but not actively involved in them. So I think I like when there's chaos and the bustleness of like of life and there's stuff going on, but I don't want to actively be a part of it. I'd rather observe it. But if I'm comfortable with people or I have like a small circle, I guess the crazier side of me or the extroverted side of me comes out if I'm doing karaoke or something or I'm really tired. So I can be that, but I I don't think I'm like voyeuristic, but I think the energy of the room of a party is enough for me to not have to actively be involved.
You just kind of like to soak up the vibes pretty much and not really be the center of attention. Right?
Yeah, I like to just watch everybody, see
Yeah,
what they're doing.
makes a lot of sense, especially with SE. Kind of like, I'm gonna observe everybody else, see what's going on here.
Yeah, and for a while I was comfortable just learning from other people's mistakes, just like seeing what like seeing what drugs did to somebody or seeing what I guess, getting pregnant at a young age, like having seen that and having observed and like been a part of people who experience that on their own, it made me reconsider, do I want to do those things? And if I don't, how can I avoid that? So I think that that perception aspect of my personality helped me to learn from other people's mistakes so I didn't really have to make them myself. Not that any of those things, if people have done them, is a mistake, but just the way that it affected their lives. I just had to actively decide or to consider how I could not end up in the same position if that's not what I wanted for my life.
Yeah, very cool. That's very observant of you. And a lot of like, I guess SPs, the artisans, ESFPs, ISFPs, ISTPs, ESTPs. They're maybe not so much ISFPs and ISTPs. They have the NI and the child function rather than inferior. They're pretty insecure about the future, and they just kind of live in the moment, and they don't really care about the consequences. So they just do whatever, and get them a lot of trouble, get them hurt, get somebody else hurt. That's good that you kind of watched other people's mistakes and didn't make those mistakes yourself.
Yeah, I've definitely made a lot of mistakes and hurt people, but I think that it I think a mindset, I think in my early 20s, it was more of like being so sheltered in growing up. And then as soon as I like moved out, I was like, oh, there's a whole side of life that I never experienced and a lot of fun that I never had. So I'm also like, I'm really curious about things. So I think that the best way to like understand something is to experience it yourself in some regard. And so I just wanted to know how fun life could be and like what aspects I could, you know, dip my toes in. And so um I think sometimes, I guess in my early 20s, I just thought, oh, there's no one being affected by this. But I realized, like, okay, well, if I'm out all night, then I'm going to be irritable the next day. And the people who I'm involved with the next day are going to see a side of me that, my mistakes for the night before of not getting enough sleep affects the person the next day. So simple things like that.
Yeah, I kind of curtailed and got off subject a little bit. I just want to close the gap here. I asked what's your favorite thing about being an ISFP. What's the worst thing about being an ISFP? You're just in your experience, like your biggest downfall, you'd think.
Maybe kind of the things that I was mentioning right now, that because of my because of this like dynamic of like being one thing and being another, people, I guess I could be misunderstood. That some days I'm really introverted and some days I'm really extroverted, so it throws people off of like, are you this thing, are you that thing, and do I respond this way or do I respond that way? um and then people think they know me, but then it's not really who I am, but mostly just because I'm so like in between of both sides of the spectrum that it can just throw people off. And so I don't like being misunderstood. And so, and since I am so forward and a lot of people aren't, um, a lot of times people don't say anything to me or don't ask for clarification. And so I feel like I have to be even more mindful of how I conduct myself and how I'm being, I guess, perceived by others.
Yeah, I think that's kind of like an INFP struggles with, who has FI as their main function too. They are very friendly and out, kind of not really outgoing, but they're friendly on the outside, but inside they just kind of need a lot of time to recharge and stay to themselves. And they're very people oriented, and they want the best for people, but it's kind of like a push and pull with inside themselves, and they want to give to people, but they kind of ghost everybody and should come shut-ins for a while. And that's kind of something that they need. Is that something similar for an ISFP or?
Yeah, I do have moments where I need to just be alone. I think that like on Saturdays and Sundays, all I really want to do because I'm so busy is just lay in bed and not even like sometimes I don't even want to watch anything. I just want to be in silence. Um, and I do need to recharge, but at the same time, I think that I feel unproductive and I don't like that feeling.
Yeah.
But I do relate a lot to that description.
Yeah, it's kind of how I am. Like I just keep going 16, 15, 16, 17 hours a day. And when I give myself a break, I have to make myself do it. I feel lazy and worthless, but I know if I don't, I'm gonna burn out.
Yeah.
All right. I want to get a little bit into the functions here. So we talked a little about FI. I can definitely see it in you where, you agree with me that the systems, there's a lot of broken systems and they need fixed, and it's really a shame. And you kind of have your own standpoint on that rather than kind of going with the flow, I guess, and not really doing anything about it. Kind of like you want to stay in, sometimes you want to go out. So it just kind of depends on your mood. I mean, there's definitely nothing wrong with making, FI decisions like that. How else can you elaborate on that?
I mean, I think that you said it well. I think that I it's I guess for me it's mostly just that I guess in a way too, I think there in my personality type it described me as being a bit unpredictable. So I think sometimes it comes off that way, but I usually know what it is that I want. It's just a matter of a circumstance allows.
Okay. And your SC parent, we talked a little bit about it. Like you're able to just kind of look at a picture of a hairstyle that somebody wants and you give it to them. And when somebody like give me something, like, you don't want to give them a bad experience. You don't want to give like something that you want and they end up hating it.
Yeah,
And
I think that goes in with the feeling aspect of like, I think that's probably more of why that, um, I think it's also why I left working in the salon and just like did friends here or families is that, if I have a stranger coming in to my chair, I know nothing about them. And so it doesn't, I can, give them what they think they want, but unless I really know someone, there's no way for me to really, um, facilitate their needs and the capacity they need. So I I think that may tie into my personality type as well that I don't like small talk and I'm introverted in that way that I don't like small talk. I don't want to just oh hey how are you or oh let's hang out and I also don't have social media so because it facilitates that type of mindset for me. Um, so I'd rather just be really personable because I think that that's the most effective way you can help people is if you really know them.
SC is also tied into like athletics, or like I said, you could be very mechanical, artistic, good with your hands, things like that. It's really about being in a present moment. Is there any other expression you have besides doing hair?
I mean, I like to be active. I think that if I have my own children in the future, I would really like to homeschool and just be have them learn from their outside environment by like planting something or by climbing trees or just being active with the elements of nature of okay this is the beaches and with this sand how this sand feels and this sand feels different than that of the sand at the park and stuff so I think that I work with my hands in that aspect and of course with hair I like to sew I don't think I'm the greatest at sewing sometimes doing makeup I think that I'm decent at those things. But mostly I feel like working with my hands, I think I'm at my best when I'm doing hair, whether that be color or styling or just um, because it gets me out of my head. I'm not thinking about anything, I'm doing things and it's like mechanical for me.
Yeah, you're just in the moment and it distracts you.
Yeah.
I know a lot of SPs, they're kind of like me in a lot of way, but they have to do something mechanical. Like I knew this one guy that knew my uncle, and he painted bridges all day for like 12 hours, and he'd go home and paint cars for another 4 or 5 hours. So he was just painting stuff all day just because he loved to do it. And he was really good at it. So, and my uncle, he's an ISFP, which he's a really cool guy. I like him a lot. And he's getting old though, but he just remodels these houses and does this beautiful work. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that sounds great.
I know my son, I think he's only 5, but he's looking like he's going to be an SC Dom, like a ESFP, ESTP. And I have him in this little school that we're lucky enough to find. It's only like very small school sizes, like 20 kids in a class. And they're very hands-on. They have like goats and chickens out in their yard, and they're very community-based. Probably not so much with COVID right now, but I think it's a real hands-on experience for him rather than being stuck reading a book all day. Because I think people, that just like you said that you had trouble reading. I may have misheard you. You said that you had that issue when you were a kid.
No, I didn't have trouble reading. I think I was just like too inquisitive for my
Mm.
peers.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I might have
I
misunderstood
had in
you.
trouble like imagining things,
Oh, that's what
like
you
coming
said.
up with ideas on my own.
Yeah, yeah, that's something that censors usually have. They're usually accused of not having a very high imagination and are very
I
practical. So it sounds like you're kind of your child function, the tertiary function is kind of like where your innocence lies, your immaturity in a sense, like your childishness, not necessarily in a bad way. Like an INTJ, we have FI, like I said, in our child function. So we're kind of selfish the way we feel. Like if we are not in the mood to do something, we often won't do it. You're childish in the opposite function, you're introverted intuition. So it sounds like you kind of like want a better future for people. And you have like this child, not that's like a good thing, but you have like this childlike wonder about the future and fixing like things for smaller kids and things like that and intervening at a young age.
Yeah, I think I would say I'm probably right in the middle of what you mentioned about yourself and what you mentioned about my personality type. I think there's my intuition is to be more selfish of like, oh, I don't feel like doing this. I don't want to, I don't want to give this person a ride home. It's out of my way. But I think like the other side of me kind of drives the mentality of, I guess the wonder about my future is what if this happened to me in the future? How would I want someone else to respond to this? And that kind of is the motivating factor for me to be more considerate of other people.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And that's kind of like your intuitive side. Do you ever, I kind of always wondered this. I haven't talked to an ISTP or ISFP yet about this really. Kind of like introverted intuition for me. It's kind of like I could sit there and daydream for hours on end. It kind of is like imagination, like pattern recognition, symbol recognition, connecting the dots. You have that element to you, or is that something you struggle to see?
Mm, I can I have a hard time with like daydreaming. I can like a little bit. I actually don't dream often, so if I do dream, it's a daydream.
Mm-hmm.
But it's only for like a short period of time because unless I have experienced something firsthand or it's an actual, real, factual thing that's happening, I just can't go past, a certain amount of time thinking about it.
Yeah, it makes sense. Your SE kind of kicks you like, okay, back to reality.
Yeah.
There's another question I was going to ask, but it slipped my mind. It'll come back to me. Let's talk about your TE, which sounds actually pretty impressive. It's like your inferior function where you're kind of afraid to look stupid in a lot of ways. But you said you're taking like 5 courses right now and working 2 jobs, and you used to have a podcast, but you kind of put that on the back burner for your current goals of going to school and stuff, right?
Yeah. Um, so I think so what's the question? I'm sorry.
Just extroverted thinking. It's like about reading outside sources, going off studies, going off books, going off what other people kind of say. Uh,
Yeah, so I really like learning because I think that I've always been that way. I've always been really inquisitive, and so I've always had questions. Growing up, it was always, I mean, I think children do that in general, like why? Why does this happen? But why? And I think that never left for me. So part of my motivation for things like that is that I just want to understand better, and I want to know more. And if I don't, I mean, I can go on rabbit holes, especially when it comes to like conspiracy theories or like true crime or something or unsolved mysteries. Um, I have a hard time with unanswered questions, and so I think that I like to look into things like that because there is no definite answer, and I think that's interesting to me.
Mm-hmm. That's very cool. Do you mind talking about the podcast? If not, I could cut it out. As you said, you talked about controversial topics. I'm just a little interested, like what kind of controversial topics?
So, I mean, my goal with it was to talk about things that I are mostly taboo in like religious circles, like about sex and drugs and porn and issues like that. The content I guess I discussed in the episodes that are out, I was talking about music and how that impacts you psychologically. Because growing up, I was in a really super religious organization where like I wasn't allowed to listen to anything that wasn't Christian. Um, and I talked about politics and feminism and um, I think I don't remember what the other thing was, but I just things that are difficult for people to have to, I guess, agree to disagree on, and it was mostly to see if I could find common ground on like either side of an issue. Someone who's super not feminist, what does that look like? And someone who is a super feminist, what does that look like? And is there a way that, what's the mindset that we should take in this approach?
What are your opinions on that? How feminist do you think is, there's a spectrum, obviously. Where do you think it's good to be at? You think like not totally outrageously feminist or hardcore feminist?
So, your question was about feminism. I think that the healthy approach to it is what its original intent was to be conscious of like the disparities between, men and women, and how can we make it to where we have an equal playing field, I guess. The issue comes in when people, I guess part of why the movement is controversial in a way is that it's changed a lot over the years, that there's like different waves. I think technically we would be in like the fourth wave of feminism, and that looks different than what third wave was and second wave and the first wave. So when we keep switching things up, there's like no real way for people to like focus on what it is that needs to be addressed when the standards for what needs to be addressed changes so often. So I think that's where, oh, at least my understanding of where like the issue lies is that there's no real way to address an issue if not everyone can agree on what the issue is.
Yeah, I kind of see, I agree with like the old term of feminism where, they should have rights to vote, rights to have careers and things like that. But now it's seeming like they want to pick and choose their rights, and it's more like of a supremacy issue. Like, oh, you can still pay for the dinner in a movie, but I want to do it, everything else that I want to do. So they're kind of cherry picking things, it seems like, in a lot of in a sense.
Yeah, which I think that we're kind of in a sensitive state in our culture currently, and so if you want to have an opinion, like be prepared to have people disagree with you and tell you they disagree with you and tell you how you're wrong and like tear you down. And so I think a lot of people get afraid to speak out or to share their thoughts on an issue. So I think that's part of why I had started the podcast, was to give insight of like, okay, well, I'm aware that I'm, a 28-year-old woman who probably has more conservative values. I guess I would identify as a libertarian, but I just want to understand why someone would consider themselves this and why someone would consider themselves that, and see if we can just agree to disagree or find common ground on something. And so that was the nature of what I wanted the podcast to be. But of course, that's a lot of work to do, because it's hard to take your own biases out of the equation.
Yeah, it's something I kind of struggle with too. Like, I don't try to get in arguments with people on here. I'll challenge them a little bit. Like, if I don't agree with them, but I don't get outright belligerent, but I just kind of let people speak their own mind and give their own point of views and things like that. So I try to be straight down the middle as possible. And I also vote libertarian usually too.
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna get a little short on time here. I want to get into shadow functions a little bit. These are a little less known. So the first shadow function is the opposing personality, aka the nemesis, uh, which for ISFPs is FE, extroverted feeling. FE users in general get kind of accused of being considered selfish or narcissistic, and they're not so considerate of other people's feelings. Have you ever experienced this in your life?
I have. It's a lot easier for me to care deeply about strangers than it is to care deeply about those close to me. So I have been accused of having narcissistic qualities, and actually, I had mentioned I had taken that narcissistic test. There's like a psychological test you could take, and it's out of 40. So if you're anything above 20, you're considered a narcissist, which a lot of celebrities and stuff are on this spectrum.
Really?
And anything below is, no narcissism at all. And I think I was like a 20 or a 21. So I wasn't high up there, but I was on the scale. But I think when you are vocal or you're involved in some type of when you have a passion, like you know that you're gonna have to be seen and like be out there. So I think to some extent you have to have a narcissistic quality because you need to be comfortable being in the spotlight. Um, I'm not necessarily comfortable doing that, but I just think that there's people's voices who should be heard. And so that's where this mindset comes. I don't consider myself a narcissist, but I'm going to take the reins or put myself out there or be inconsiderate of someone else's emotions if that means that I help someone or I help more people for like the greater good. Um, I don't know that I know that there's that question, that paradox. I don't know if it's a paradox where if you see a train's about to hit one person you love or five people you don't know, what lever do you pull? I don't know that I could answer that question for myself, but I do think that like I can have those negative qualities if that means that a larger group, a group at large could be affected in a positive way as opposed to, a smaller group that I think is negative, I guess.
Yeah, it was Robert Greene. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he does talk about narcissism, and he agrees that narcissism is on a spectrum, and everybody has to be narcissistic to an extent because you just kind of wouldn't take care of yourself. I mean, like a ESFJ or an ENFJ, even they're really high with their FI, where it's in your shadow and my shadow as well. So, yeah, they're really self-serving, I guess, or they're really selfless in a lot of ways, but you can be selfish too. But I think it's interesting. And celebrities, I didn't know if a lot of them were narcissistic, but I guess you kind of have to be to like want to be in the star of a movie in a sense, I guess.
Yeah. Which I think that's why there's the balance about everything is important, that I can have those narcissistic traits and have that mindset, the shadow that you mentioned. I can relate to a lot of those things, but that's only if I have to. Like it's not a natural, my thought process doesn't naturally do those things. I want to be selfless and I want to help people. But if I have to be selfish, if I have to be narcissistic, if I have to be inconsiderate of someone else's feelings, I will do that because, if the context is I need to get something done or something is important of importance, I will become those things to get the job done.
Okay, I want to move along here. We got about 12 minutes, I think. SI cynics. SI is kind of about like keeping traditions, honor, religion, kind of keeping things they wear. It's like comparing your past experiences to solve present problems. It's also be about like your own personal comfort and self-care and kind of disciplining yourself. You're kind of very critical of that about yourself, or most ISFPs are. What's that in your experience like for you?
I think that I am pretty critical of myself, but I don't think it's a natural thing. I think it's because of my religious upbringing. I think that I have this constant consideration of what would the religious people in my life think of me and what does God think of me. So that's drives a lot of my criticism or any guilt or shame I may feel about something. I don't think natural, like I think naturally I want to be free, I want to be creative, I want to have no limits. I just want to do my own thing. But the aspect of community and a higher power, God just kind of ties into the nature of my actions or my criticism.
Okay, very cool. I don't mean to rush it here, but we're almost out of time. The trickster function is kind of where you lack awareness. So yours is ISFPs is extroverted intuition, which is kind of seeing outside patterns, seeing all the possibilities, where NI, introverted intuition, seeing kind of the best path forward. And that's something that you're not too aware of, or on paper you're not aware of. Is that something that I know you said, like, if something isn't real, isn't tangible, you only think about it for a certain amount of time, then kind of go back to your SE and see what's in front of you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that I can consider all of the possibilities. I do overanalyze things, so if there's a decision that I need to make, I try to consider all of the possibilities, but I have a hard time deciding. I almost leave it up to like fate, or like I'm just going to apply to all these jobs, and thing, whatever person responds, that's the one I'll take, or whatever path is easier, that's the one I'll take. So I kind of do, I leave things up in the air so that,
Mhm.
I don't have to make the decision. Wherever it falls, that's what, gets it.
That's a common thing for SPs. They don't really plan too much. They just kind of act in a moment and use tactics basically.
Yeah. I try to plan just because it makes life easier, but like that's not my natural function.
Yeah. All right. Last but not least is the demon function. It's the area of like hatred and all that stuff. So yours for ISFPs, it's introverted thinking, kind of like you kind of hate your own internal thought process, like your own original thoughts can be stupid in your mind, I guess. So you kind of rely on TE, where you get external thoughts from books and other people and studies and things like that.
Yes, I think that has a play in a lot of like um I think my nature is to do things that go out of alignment with my religious views. So that external drive is like, God and the Bible and Christianity. And so my natural desire is to do the opposite of those things. Um, I want to do all of the things that I'm not supposed to do. So that external drive is reading the Bible and being directed by like a church community and stuff. So there's definitely is that dichotomy.
Okay. These are questions that I kind of wrap up the podcast and ask everybody. Do you have a favorite type?
Um, I don't like extroverts. So anyone who's with the E's,
Oh,
it's
really?
difficult for me to like um I start to get judgmental because I'm so like perceptive. I think I like the people. I actually was talking to my sister about hers. I think she's the mediator. So people like that, I think it's like INFP, I think that's what she is.
Maybe.
Um, so sometimes I kind of like people that are similar to mine, or actually I may like is it the INTJs? The people who are just more assertive, that they know what they want, just because I don't have time for nonsense. So if someone's like on the same, I guess, wavelength as me of like, okay, let's get this done, and then, um, you know, let's work now, play later, and then when they do play later, it is like a deep, meaningful connection. So people who are, I guess, a type that's similar to mine.
Yeah, we definitely have some similarities, like the NIFI is kind of switched around, but we use those functions. Actually, there's a socionics, which is a Russian version of typology, MBTI, Jung's work, whatever you want to call it. And there's quadras, since we all use the same functions, but it's in a different order. We're in the same
Yeah.
quadra, the gamma quadra. You have a least favorite type?
I think what I was saying is that
Extroverts.
super extroverted are the people who are just really passive. I love my sister so much, but she is very driven by emotion, and so the people who are either driven by emotion or like driven by external rewards, like that's what's frustrating to me because it's like you're not Um, I feel like I know this is just a stereotype that I sometimes extroverts can be um, out there because they want that external validation, not just because they're genuinely like that. And I think those personalities are a bit of a turnoff to me.
Yeah, that could be a little much for me too, like the impulsivity or needing so much validation and things like that. Right. So what would you like others to know about you, other types as an ISFP or just as a person?
I think just with this personality type that and just in general, I think it's best to just talk to people. And if you are concerned or confused or you don't understand something, it's always okay to just ask. If a lot of people in my past have not wanted to approach me because I looked intimidating or I just didn't seem approachable. But once someone gets to know me, they realize that I care deeply about people and I really enjoy getting to know them and learning from them. So I think the biggest takeaway I would hope is that people just are comfortable asking questions and just getting to um because even like what's the worst that can happen, like someone says no to you or don't talk to me, it's like okay, well at least you tried. And like that, you asking a question gives you the more confidence to ask another question or just to gain insight on someone. And if you don't ask questions, if you don't talk to people, then I don't think that you'll grow personally or intellectually.
Yeah, I think you just getting over your TE in general, that's just kind of summing it up over there, like just kind of getting out there and asking questions and learning things about people and things. So that's really cool.
Yeah.
Okay, my final question for you. What would you like to know about INTJs or others in general?
I guess just how I think I would want to think about the deeper meanings of everything of just like um do you think that your personality type is because that's just who you are innately, or do you think that your environment kind of facilitated this type of personality for you? I think just in general, I always want to understand, I guess, the nature and nurture aspect of like, is this in your nature to be this way, or did your environment nurture this dynamic for you personally or people in general?
I think we're all born a type. I've been doing some videos with an ENTJ guy named Xeon. He's really deeply into astrology, and we're kind of seeing like pinpointing, like you can kind of type somebody based on their chart and not just like a paragraph of your sun sign in, like a website or a newspaper for people old enough to remember those. But the nurture aspect is definitely for me. Like I developed avoidant personality disorder where you more or less avoid people and social interactions and you're kind of alone and isolated. And that was definitely due to my upbringing. And I think certain types are definitely prone to developing certain mental illnesses and personality disorders. So that's something I definitely want to look into the future.
Yeah. I think actually the ISFP and the INTJs are not that different. Maybe it's the nurturing aspect that kind of facilitates how that plays in the individual's life.
Yeah, it sounds like you're in a pretty restrictive, Jesus-y environment in a lot of ways, right?
So I've been told.
Yeah. I didn't really have a religious element in my life, and INTJs are usually the least religious of all the types.
I think maybe if I didn't have like the religious aspect in my life, I would have been an INTJ.
Maybe. All right. I know you're a very busy woman, and I really appreciate you taking the time to do this. Do you have any questions for me or anything you'd like to say before you go?
I think that's it. Thank you so much. This has been awesome to, get to talk to someone else and get to see how we're probably more alike than we are different. So that's pretty cool to be able to hear and to just talk with you. So thank you.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. Well, if you like this content, please like, share, subscribe. Like I said, I have a Discord server and social media. It's all down below in the description. Thank you for going on a clickbait and have a great day. And let me end this recording.